Hi, everybody. This is Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice. Thanks for joining me once again, and we have a really fun one for you this time. Lebanon probably isn't the first place that comes to mind when you think of a vibrant, classic car culture. But after listening to this episode, your viewpoint will definitely change. Because recently I was scrolling on Instagram, as we all do, and I happened on one of the most interesting reels I've seen in a long time. It was very original, and I was intrigued because it was from an account called Classics with Fassoon. And it showed an incredible gathering of old cars in Beirut, of all places. And my guest today is the man behind that Instagram account. Dr. Ahmad Fahs is a Lebanese car enthusiast, and he's sharing the classics of his country with the world via social media. Everything from little Fiats to Ferrari Testarossas. I mean, cars that are universally appreciated. So after seeing his Instagram, I immediately got in touch with Ahmad, and here we are. So you're going to love this conversation because it's proof that no matter where we live, we are all the same. We just love cars. So please give him a follow on Instagram and on his YouTube channel at Classics with Fassoon. That's Fahsoun. And as always, I'll put those links in the show notes, but you definitely have to check out what he's doing. And before we get started, just a reminder to support Horsepower Heritage with a donation at buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage. And thank you to those of you who've already become patrons because it really helps me keep this podcast going. And of course, don't forget, subscribe to Horsepower Heritage on YouTube and Instagram as well if you haven't done that already. And now, here's my conversation with Ahmad Fahs of Classics with Fassoon. Enjoy. You know, one of the things, Ahmad, that I'm so fascinated by is in the West, we have this image of Beirut and we have this image of Lebanon. And unfortunately, a lot of it is negative. And that's unfair, I think, because after all, Lebanese people are the same as any other people. You're living your lives. You have families and jobs and outside interests, and cars happens to be your interest. So I think my listeners are going to be just absolutely fascinated by what you have to say today.
Yeah, that's actually one of the main reasons I started this page, because to create some bridge to the West and to portray the ideas and the images that we have here that are not very portrayed outside.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. So, Ahmad, you're a dentist. How did your car fascination begin? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my car fascination goes very, way back. There's just like videos of me on a mini motorbike like a lot of kids. But throughout the years, I would have big interest in toys and whatnot. But the actual start of my car enthusiasm and maybe classics started around 12 years old. I was 12 and my father had some memories with a Peugeot 404, if you know that model.
Yes, of course.
Yes, and he had some memories of it from his family and whatnot, and he decided to buy one randomly. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw my dad go up the driveway with a 404 with a huge smile on his face. And as a kid, you look up to your father, and that made him happy, so why does that not make me happy as well? But I quite took it too literally because I started stealing the key. I didn't go to my father and tell him, oh, I like how you're happy with that. I was like, I want to experience it on my own. So I would steal the key when he's not home. No one's home. And I would just turn it on, off first week. Second week, put it into gear, put it in reverse and whatnot. Luckily, I live in a very quiet neighborhood. Literally no one lives here and there's just trees and whatnot. So I look up the manual in the car. I learn how to drive from the manual because it's a stick shift. I've never driven anything before. And I was like,
and it's a shift on the column.
Exactly, a manual 4-speed. And I had to put some cushions to just lift myself up. And somehow I did manage to get the car out of the garage for the first time, the second time, and I do some loops around the neighborhood. The car would die a few hundred times. But my happy stealing the car didn't end up very happily because I did a minor accident with the car. Because no one taught me, I just parked the car in third gear uphill, and our house is like a slope. And I went up to my bedroom looking at the car. There's no car.
No.
Yeah. I go down again, and it's down the driveway, very down the driveway. And that whole back was smashed. Luckily, the handbrake was kind of on and not on, so it went downwards. Like we saved the
Slowly.
car. Yeah, the car was kind of fine, but my father is not an angry person. He's not a person you can piss off. So the moment he came home, he's like, "It's you," and I know why. He's like, "You love cars, so let's do something about it." So that's how it actually started. He just put me on his laps and let's go for a spin around the block. First time, second time, third time. We also started to go to the mechanics to fix the car together and whatnot. And I learned a lot from there. But the actual plot twist was my father gave me the keys at 13 years old. He's like, take the car, do whatever you want. But if it breaks down, do not call me. I do not know you. Handle it on your own. So he was expecting he was expecting that I'd be scared and not gonna take the car out. But little did he know, I started taking the car to school, and we do have police, but we do not have police that's like stops you. Like I remember the one time they stopped me back then. They asked me if the car was for sale. I was 14. That was the only question they asked. So I just go.
They were car guys.
Yeah, car guys. And I just take the car, pick up my friends, and go to school every day. And whenever the car breaks down, straight to the mechanic. And I would start asking questions like a little baby. What's this? Can I do this? Can I do that? Luckily, some of them were very patient and taught me a lot that I had to learn. But maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later on.
That's a wonderful story. And obviously your father is a kind and understanding man. So that really helps. So. I like the fact that he realized that this could go one of two ways. You know, you could be maybe doing things the wrong way, or if he gave you a little bit of latitude, you would do things the right way and figure things out.
That was definitely the case. And he saw the passion in my eyes, to say the least, you know. From then on, it was madness because me and him went on a journey together. Because after this Peugeot 404, I kind of developed a craze and a crave and an addiction to everything French at that point. So instead of just having one Peugeot 404, we went to buying 3 more, and we had 4 Peugeot 404s.
Wow. There are a lot of French classic cars in Lebanon, right? Because there was a French influence for many years.
The most cars we have here are French, honestly. But then the Germans came in and whatnot. But yeah, French cars all over the place. We have a lot of Renaults, too many, especially in the mountainous areas. We have Renault 12s, Renault 16s, do whatever you want. They're all over the place. Till this day, like they're not classic cars. They are actual workhorses.
Right. That's true in many parts of the world. You know, I remember being in Tahiti and seeing Land Rovers from the 1960s still in daily service. And that was 20 years ago. And I wouldn't be surprised to go back there right now and see them still working hard.
They are, and they're all everywhere, and they're working just as new. They're perfect cars.
By the way, I was a lot like you, not as young, but when I was 15 or so, I could not wait to drive. And I had a friend who was a year older, so he already had his driver's license, but he didn't really like to drive. He wanted to ride. He wasn't interested in driving. So I would drive his car everywhere we went. And I drove for a year and a half without a license and never got pulled over, never, no trouble. I drove responsibly. I just like to drive. And the car we were driving around was a 1965 Pontiac Bonneville. It was 21 feet long, 318 cubic inch V8 engine, automatic. The power steering on that car, you could just turn it with your pinky, Amazing. Amazing power steering, amazing power brakes. And the car was massive, and we could fit easily eight to 10 people in there. We had a lot of fun in that thing. And so that was the first car I ever drove, actually. Well, that was the first car I ever drove any length of time. When I was a kid, we had a 67 Ford Fairlane station wagon. And that was the first car I ever actually drove. My mother let me drive it once on a dirt road, and I mashed the gas pedal down and spun the tires. And she said, "Stop, that's enough." And I think I was about 8 years old at the time. And that was the last time I drove a car until my friend's Bonneville. But anyway, so I started early, just like you.
I can only imagine that day stuck in your head like movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember it very well. Ahmad, based on your Instagram, there is a very enthusiastic group of classic car people in the Beirut area. Is that right?
It's all over Lebanon, and it's like a disease that's being even more and more contagious. and I'm really happy about it because everyone is stepping up the game. Lebanon is a very small country to start with. It's like 10,425 kilometers squared.
Yeah, it's about the size of the state of Connecticut, which is one of our smaller states in the U.S. So yeah, it's small, about 4,000 square miles.
Yes, and that helps a lot because everyone is seeing everyone, and the community isn't small, but it's tight. Like everyone knows everyone, and it helps a lot because whenever we're doing an event, everyone's gonna want to join and whatnot. But I live in the south of Lebanon, the unfortunate place recently. But
yes,
back in 2017, I was 17 years old, and I saw a lot of classic cars around, parked in houses. Old people have them. Very few young people have driven any of them. And I was kind of disappointed because I have participated in a few classic rides and events back in Beirut when I was young. But I wanted to take it to my area. So I was like, who's going to stop me make a classic cars club? At the beginning, I said I want to start the club with only the people who are young. The maximum age was 25. People who can join the club can be at most 25. So there's just a couple of Beetles, couple of, I don't know, classic American cars. And we started going around the neighborhood and what. A few months later, I started getting calls from people who are 60 and 50. And at 17, it's weird for me. Like, what do you want from me? And
right.
They started to join. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't join. We have a very strict policy. But later on, I realized I really need these people to make the club even bigger or whatnot. And eventually we got around 100 members. With 100 members, you can do so much. Every weekend we'd go for rides and pass on this community that we had. And at the end of year 2019, more than half of the members were new members who drove classic cars because of the club. And to me, that was the biggest achievement on a personal level because we infected the community with this love for classics.
Well, and the other thing that's good about having older members is that they've kind of been there and done that. They've got knowledge to pass on, and it's nice to have different age groups represented. It's just better for the club overall, I think. The young people are great because they're going to be there for a while. They're not going to get too old and sell their cars, which it happens. Guys age out of the hobby.
That's true. A lot of people get bored, but this young factor really drives them back, and I don't know, reminds them of their younger days. So this balance is perfect in a club when you have very young people who are like 18, 19, and some are 15, 16 here in the South, and people who are 60 and seen quite a lot.
Does the club have a name?
Yes, it's called South Classics. As simple as that.
South Classics.
Yeah.
And pretty much any classic car, do you have a cutoff? Like, what years do you accept in the club?
Anything up till mid-70s, late 70s. That's the top for it. But anyone can join, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a restored car or, just if it's a classic car.
4 wheels and driver, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
You can't be too picky in a community. There's not quite a lot. It's not a huge community because what we have is everything almost. Like everyone who has a classic car is joining in. It's for everyone, honestly. But it's not just the South where we have these events. So Lebanon all over is filled with these clubs and these communities. Mainly, we gather around the Beirut area. There, it's full of life, and the range of cars is actually crazy. I've been traveling a lot the world for the last 5 years, quite heavily, but most people are grouped. Each club goes on their own and whatnot. Here, everyone's going with each other and they're enjoying the time together. And I think it's quite a beautiful thing we have here.
That's true in the United States, in many places now, too. It used to be that car clubs were, mark specific and even model specific. It was just nothing but Mustangs or, nothing but Datsun Z cars. And over the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years, people have really been mixing it up a lot more, which is great because you learn about different cars and you start to appreciate different things. And it also sort of eliminates this rivalry where this guy thinks Chevys are awesome and Fords are terrible. You start to appreciate other things.
Yes, the mix-up is really important for you to pass on the culture. And a lot of people start investing in other cars, like a lot of the Beetle groups. They used to go out together on their own and they enjoy their time. And I understand the craze. I have a Beetle too. I love it. But the moment they start going out with the muscle cars, they're like, oh, I want one too. And now why can't I have a Beetle and a muscle car? And it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. And, I for a long time was just a BMW guy, and then I was just a Land Rover guy, but I started to, take a broader view of things, and now I have a bunch of different cars, and none of them are really similar. They're all they're all their own thing, which is really fun. And whatever mood I happen to be in, that's the car I choose for the day.
You turn it on and you leave. I know exactly what you mean because after that incident with the Peugeot 404 and whatnot, and with the other cars, we started growing a collection. So my father and my uncle were like, let's invest in these instead of just putting money in bank. This is an investment. Maybe, okay, the cars we got not necessarily are going to grow in value, but they're going to hold value. So that's good enough. And in 2015 was our first purchase. Besides being a Peugeot, we got a Mercedes Fintail. One of my toughest lessons ever because we invested way too much in it. In Lebanese money, is much lower than what I see in the US and around the world. Restoring a car should take anywhere between 5 to 10K, a full restoration. We're talking interior, paint, everything. I invested around $35,000 in that car, and it is not worth half of that.
Right.
But that's what my father told me. If you want to learn, you got to learn from your pockets. So it was more of a learning process than a restoration. And it's such a valuable lesson at 15 years old to be restoring something like that. And everything I learned back then, I am applying every single day now. It's worth it.
What's your Fintail, a 220?
No, it is a 190.
190, okay. And Mercedes-Benz cars are never cheap to restore. It doesn't matter where on the globe you happen to be. They're not cheap.
Definitely. And it's worse when you don't meet the right people because you're doing the same thing for 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and that even elevates the price even more.
Yeah. But I love the Fintail. Such a classic look. They wanted that car to sell well in the American market, and they were a little bit late to the tail fin craze, but it lasted. I think the last Fintail was built in 1968?
68 was the last
68,
year.
So yeah. So it endured for a long time, and they're wonderful cars. That's definitely on my list. Someday I'll have a Fintail.
That's definitely a car you would enjoy. It's a little bit slow, but it's not. Anyways, the goal is not to go fast. It would have been nicer if it was a little bit more agile, but overall, it has such a stable sensation. You're driving on the road like a king, honestly.
Yes, they're very comfortable. The Mercedes-Benz engineering is, you feel it when you're in those cars. When I was a freshman in college, my girlfriend's father, who was also a dentist, by the way, had a Pontoon 190. So the previous model to the fintail, yeah. And it was a beautiful dark green, like a forest green. And it had that wood on the dashboard and a 4-speed on the column. And he drove that car daily. That was his commuter car. He didn't have far to go, but he really enjoyed it. And I remember cruising around in that car thinking, this is living, you know?
Even for long distance, these cars hold up crazy good. If you take care of them, nothing's going to break them. And whatever goes wrong, you're just going to fix it literally with it.
Right. He also used to tease me because at the time I had a 1969 BMW 1600, and he would badmouth BMW constantly, make fun of it.
This is a rivalry, always Mercedes and BMW. Never-ending debates.
Definitely. Ahmad, what are some of the cars in Lebanon that are iconic, the cars that are really kind of part of Lebanese car culture?
Funny you just mentioned it right now, because the 180 Ponton is literally the icon of Lebanon when it comes to Mercedes-Benz, followed by the 190, the 114, and 115. They're used. I wouldn't consider these classics. Coming from here, these are not classics. They are actual taxis. If I go on the street tomorrow from 8 a.m., I will find at least 50 in my neighborhood, at least. And some of them, a lot of are beaten up. A lot of them are being restored right now, which I'm very happy about. Cheap restoration, but they're still on the road for at least 100 years, and I'm so happy about that. When it comes to other brands besides Mercedes-Benz, you find a lot of Land Rovers and Renault 12s, like I've said, in the mountains areas, Ladas from the later series, a lot of BMW E30s. Those are everywhere. The beauty of Lebanese people, they love to live. They really like life. And I say that even though I traveled around the world, it's more of, even if you're in a bad financial state, you want a car and you want to enjoy your Sunday morning. So even if you're living off very hard money, someone's gonna spare their money and buy an E30 and do whatever they want to do to it, modify it and drift with it or whatnot. Maybe that's not a very classic thing to do, but I appreciate everyone who wants to just have it as a love for classic or a love for cars and invests in whatever it is. So that's also very impressive. Everyone on Sunday is out with something. Everyone.
That's so cool. Did you say that these old Mercedes Pontons are still in service as taxi cabs?
A few of them are still used, yes. And the 190s, I can see them. I know a few that are driving around, but the 114s and 115s are everywhere. And the 123, 123, yeah. They're everywhere.
All right. Incidentally, another story from my youth. The reason I got into BMWs in the first place was because of a Lebanese friend.
Actually.
Yes. And as you know, Lebanese people have emigrated all over the world. And we have a Lebanese population here in the States. And I don't know if it's baked into the cake, like Lebanese guys are just car guys. I don't know. But my friend in high school and his father were both big car guys. And he's the one who kind of turned me on to BMWs. And he had an E30 in high school. He had a 318i with a 5-speed. And that was a 1987. So he got that car new. His family was well-to-do. So, country club living and a 318i in high school, I mean, pretty nice, right?
That was the life.
Yeah, that was the life. And so he kind of turned me on to older BMWs because there's no way as a high school kid, I could afford a new E30. But my first BMW was a 76 2002. And I thrashed that car. It was, when you're a kid and you have no barometer for what performance cars are, you just do what you do, right?
I very much know that.
And you get the most out of what you're driving. And to me, that car was a little rocket. It was so much fun. And I ended up selling that car after about 5 years to an Air Force fighter pilot. I advertised the car and I got a call from him and he came out to look at the car. And he told me the story of why he wanted it. He said, I had a BMW 320i, but I fell asleep at the wheel and rolled it on the freeway in the middle of the night. And the car saved my life because even though I rolled it, I walked away from the accident. And he said, I've always wanted a 2002. And, I was selling it kind of as a project car. By the way, when I sold it, it didn't have a starter on it. I had pulled the starter because it was something was broken in the starter, but he was satisfied with the car. Money changed hands, and I push started the car for him, and he drove it back to New Mexico.
It's crazy.
It was a long way.
I don't think that car would stop. Just push it and leave.
I know, and I wonder if it's still out there somewhere. Are there cars that you've sold off that you still see around? Or
that's my biggest problem. I'm a hoarder, and I cannot sell anything. I've never sold anything.
No, I understand that. I'm mostly a buyer. I'm not much of a seller, but I totally get that. But the great thing is that you say that the community is so tight that if you did sell a car, you'd see it around.
You're
definitely
definitely gonna see it at every event if the guy is passionate and whatnot.
What's your favorite? We should definitely talk about the collection, but what's your number one favorite in your entire collection?
You can't ask a mother which her favorite child is.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Well, I'm a big fanatic of convertibles. I love to go out on a Sunday drive with the rooftop off, and it happens to be that I just finished restoring a 56 Thunderbird. So I'd lean mostly towards that. If not, I would say the 1953 MGTF. So for me, it's something that has to be in the 50s. It has to be a convertible, and it has to be fun to drive. These are the criteria.
Yeah. Well, the TF is great because it's so open. Like
you're just out there with the elements.
Exactly. The Thunderbirds are definitely a little bit more enveloped.
Yeah, it is just cruiser more of. The MG, you're on the road, and I would never drive it with a windshield on. It's always off, down, folded.
Yes.
The experience of a lifetime. Every time you get behind the wheel, I like the mechanical feel of the shifter. How you have to learn how to drive the clutch. We had that car for at least 8-9 years. I think only 2 or 3 years ago I started to know how to actually drive that car.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about the windshield down. I used to have a 64 Land Rover 109, the long wheelbase.
Yeah.
It was a pickup. So I would take the fabric top off and all the hoop set, and I would fold the windshield. And I remember one very early morning drive down the coast through Malibu. And windshield folded, it's about 6 a.m. It's kind of dewy and there's fog and I'm only doing maybe 45 miles an hour. But at that moment, I thought, this is like being in a 3-liter Bentley, at Le Mans.
Yeah.
In like 1929. It's ridiculous, but that's one of the things that's great about old cars is you have these fantasies in your head, like you can travel through time as you're behind the wheel, right?
So the fun fact about me, I do not drive anything after 1975. I daily drive classics every single day for that exact reason. I'm living in scenarios in my head. I'm going to the supermarket to buy anything, just blocks of water, but in my mind, I'm racing for my life.
That's fantastic. And that TF, by the way, one of the things that's so charming about British sports cars is that you just feel everything. You feel every pebble on the road. You feel every undulation on the tarmac. And the mechanical nature of it, through the steering wheel, through the pedals, through the seat, it's all there. And it's an incredibly active experience, right? There's no way you're ever going to fall asleep behind the wheel of that car.
Not a single second. You cannot multitask. You can just drive. You cannot touch your phone. You cannot listen to music. You have to listen to the engine to rev match it when you change the gear. You have to be fully looking around your surroundings. It's a unique experience. Let's just say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right. So, you can't pick a favorite out of the car collection because, as you say, can a mother pick her favorite child? And I totally understand that sentiment. But let's talk about the collection because it's eclectic. You have a lot of different stuff in there.
It's such a diverse thing, and that's my favorite part, is that to have a car from every part of the world. There's still a few missing, but we started off with the Peugeots, as I told you. We got a Fintail, that's 190. And after that, I convinced my uncle to jump on board. He also had a Citroën Traction Avant tucked in a garage somewhere. And the moment he caught on that I am passionate about these things, he's like, take the keys, do whatever you want, fix the car. And that's exactly what I did. I think I was 16. I went to the garage in Beirut and took the car back here to my place. Spent a few months fixing that car, and ever since then, we just kept on driving that. And I'll just list the cars because it's going to take a while. So we have a Mercedes-Benz 170V from 1949. We have a Renault Caravelle from 1961. Fiat 1100D from 64. Volkswagen Beetle, a Super Beetle from 72. What else do we have?
You have a Packard.
Yeah, a Packard 200 from 1951 with a headache of a transmission.
Yes.
What else? The Thunderbird.
That was their first. That was Packard's first attempt at an automatic transmission.
I wish it was their last.
They went outside of the company to have that developed, and it cost them a massive fortune. I think it cost $17 million in like 1948 or 49 for them to have that transmission developed. It was not as good as what GM was building.
That was
and
the beginning of the downfall.
Yeah, that was one of the things that ultimately spelled the end of Packard. Okay, so sorry, I digress.
No.
What else is there? You've got other American cars, right?
I have a 71 Buick LeSabre. I love that car.
Okay, yeah.
It's similar to the Bonneville experiences you just had back then.
Right.
The Thunderbird as well is a very long project. I got that from Canada 5 years ago.
Wow.
Nightmare. Most of the cars that you heard about came from the US. Actually, the MG came from the US. The Mercedes 170V came from Canada. The Buick came from Canada, from Ontario as well. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Ahmad, can you find cars around your region in other countries in the Mideast? And I mean, like, for example, Iran has amazing classic cars. Can you import cars from there?
Yes, you can. But recently, some legislations with taxes have been a little bit crazy. But up till a few years back, we used to import everything from outside. And I am positive that it's going to be that way again later on. But yeah, you're going to find a lot of cars around everywhere. Even in Lebanon, we still have a lot of barn finds that sadly some owners are passing away. And you find some Lincoln convertible in some garage. A lot of cars are still around, and now's the time to pick them up.
Good. It sounds like you're the guy that's going to find them too.
Hopefully not anymore. not right now. I'm trying to be more selective, and not anything impresses me at this point. I also daily drive a Fiat 600. Okay, I need to tell you something about me that I hadn't mentioned yet. My title is International Ambassador of Classic Cars because I'm literally all over the world. For the last 5 years, I've been traveling nonstop. I live in Romania for my studies. And during my time in Romania, I would spend more time in the EU instead of Romania. I'd stay in Netherlands for a few months. I would stay in Italy for a few months, in Spain. And I was literally everywhere, and only for classic car industry. So I've seen quite a lot. My bar has been raised quite much. So yeah, I don't want to buy anything. I want to reduce, if I can. I don't think I can reduce some of the collection and be more selective.
No, that's smart. And it's good that you've expanded your horizons. When you first get into cars, you don't know what you're looking at. And if you haven't seen a really good example of a particular car, you might settle for something less. And it's always good to, learn and understand what really is possible, right? Like I went through that with BMWs. I might take a day and look at 5 2002s, and most of them were complete basket cases. Clutch was shot, brakes were soft, engine was blowing smoke, and it was very disappointing. I had a friend when I was, I want to say 19 years old. I worked at a gas station. I pumped gas, which you never see in the US anymore, except for a couple of states where you aren't allowed to pump your own gas. But I worked at a service station, and that was my job. I worked the full service island, and I would work for tips. Sometimes I would get a $20 tip, sometimes a $100 tip. It was fun. And the cool thing about that was that the cars that pulled into full service were usually really nice cars, things like Bentleys and the occasional Rolls Royce, a big Lincoln, what have you. But one day, an older gentleman pulled in with a 1972 BMW 2002. And when I saw it, my jaw dropped because this car looked brand new. And as I was pumping his gas and washing his windshield, I, started a conversation, and he was very gracious. And I told him that I had a similar car, and he was very interested. And he started to come into the gas station more often. And what I learned was that he had owned this car from new. He bought it. Let me back up. I learned that he was a retired paper company executive from the East Coast. He had graduated from Dartmouth University in 1942. One of his professors was the famous American poet Robert Frost. After college at Dartmouth, he became a Navy officer and an aviator, and he flew off of carriers in World War II. And then he became a paper company executive and lived on Cape Cod and had a home in Connecticut. And he lived the life, but he bought this 2002 brand new from a company called Competition and Sports Car in Connecticut and owned it until he passed away. So those are the kind of experiences that you get in the car community sometimes. And it comes back to the people, right? The people that you meet and the relationships you develop.
People are everything in this hobby, if you want to call it, because the amount of things you learn from just going to an event and talking to someone and hearing about all the experiences or seeing their cars, how they restored their process, it teaches you so much about cars in general and what to get into and what not getting into. It's, I think, one of the most crucial factors in being in a car community.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And, our friendship continued. He trusted me, and whenever he went out of town, he would let me take care of his 2002. And he wanted me to exercise it, drive it regularly, because he would leave for the summer. He would go back to the East Coast and spend the summer on Cape Cod. And he and his wife actually invited me to spend a couple weeks with them there one time, and went out on the boat and just did the whole Cape Cod summer, and it was wonderful. And that car was so fantastic. And I remember this is the moment I realized how good a 2002 actually is, because the car was perfect, just perfect. I mean, accelerating, running through the gears, it was amazing, and it just opened my eyes.
I was actually filming a TII today in the morning.
Were you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
BMW guys ever here in Lebanon, and they have a huge love for TIIs.
What color?
It was burgundy.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's called Malaga.
My expertise with BMWs are very limited. I am not a BMW guy. If I would ever buy a BMW, it would be an Isetta, which isn't fully an BMW. So,
right. Yeah. It's an ESO. But yeah. At the time in the 60s, the names of their color schemes were places around the world. Malaga was a deep burgundy, Baikal blue after Lake Baikal. Inca is that bright orange.
Yeah, the orange one. Yeah, the iconic orange.
So Florida is a very, very pale green. They had a great color scheme in the day. Yeah, Florida is actually a very rare color on those cars. And I'll send you a photo of a BMW in Florida green. It's definitely quite beautiful. So let's talk about the Fiat a little bit, because you've restored that car. There's a reel that you put on Instagram pulling the engine and all of that.
So this is a very interesting story about how classic cars can change your life. I already had a lot of background with cars. I have deep connections with all of my other cars, but there's something very different with this car because I had just moved to Romania and I've been there for 1 year. I was not a speaker of their language. I was much of a stranger. But the moment I decided to move there, I was like, I will not live without a classic car. And I was refusing to buy a normal car. So I live in the east side of the country. And I went to the extreme west of it to buy this Fiat. The owner was asking $5,000. And when I went there were more Dacia parts on it than it was Fiat. And I was just being polite. I told the guy, I will only pay you $2,500 so he could just leave me alone and I would leave because I was hassling him for whatnot. The moment I was about to walk, he's like, listen up, it's a Fiat 600. Just give me 2,600 and it's yours. I could not turn that down. The car looked just the way you saw it in the video. To my advantage, I had 2 weeks of vacation before my university started. So I was like, how about I drive it home? Usually it's 800 kilometers drive, something about 8 hours. I'm going to let you take a guess how long it took me to drive back home.
I'll say a day or two.
You want to go up?
Let's say a week.
It took me 13 days to drive 800 kilometers.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the best experience I've ever had in my life because in 13 days, I learned how to speak Romanian. I learned the Romanian culture. I met everyone from the suburbs. I've seen the landscape. And I've learned all about mechanics because at the side of the road, you'd see me taking off the head. And on the road, I would just fix everything. Nothing was sane on that car. Everything broke down. I had to use the most creative methods. Just, what do you call them? I was using panties on the crank just to turn it. It was crazy. I was sleeping in the car. I was living in the car. That was an experience. And the idea is the moment I got to my hometown, my entire life hometown in Romania, my life completely changed because everyone wants to approach you when you have a classic car. Everyone, I was no longer a stranger there. Everyone was my friend. And in 5-6 years that I lived there with that Fiat, that car is family and memories I have around it.
No, it's wonderful. And when you're broken down in a regular car, everybody drives by. But when you're broken down in a classic car, people stop. They want to help you.
Definitely. If it wasn't for the people, I would have taken a few months to get there. But it was the people who helped me get through.
Do you know a guy on Instagram called Johnny's Garage?
Johnny's Garage, definitely, of course. We met at the Milimedia
so that's
last year.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's my friend Jonas.
Yeah.
And he drove his
Austin 7.
Yeah, he drove his Austin 7 Ulster across Europe over the summer, and he had some problems on the way home, and he had the exact same experience that you had. Like, you just got to fix it. I just want to get home. And it was, he was exhausted at the end, but it was the best experience for him.
I was keeping up. He's a crazy guy. Love the passion on him.
He's a wonderful guy. You guys are very much alike in that way.
In some sorts, yes, for sure.
What's on your list for cars? I know that you have this big collection, and you say you're a little bit more choosy now, but what's something that has so far eluded you?
A 1959 Cadillac convertible. That series,
those
fintails I've been dreaming of since I was a kid. There are a few in Lebanon, but they're never for sale, and if they are, they're just crazy money. Might as well just import it from outside. A Citroën DS is definitely on my list. It's my way to gift. I want to gift it to my father as a thank you for all these years. It's a car we grew up fantasizing about. It's not an impossible dream, but I want to have the right one.
Yes, those are amazing and a little bit complicated, but that's okay.
Anyone can fix anything, honestly. I've been traveling also into Netherlands. I've been doing a lot of restoration myself, so it's not just looking and driving. I'm deep into the restoration business. It's like dentistry. It's restoration, but on a smaller scale. And I've been outside in the Netherlands with a company called Classic Mike. The guys there took me in when we met in Romania at a concourse. And this is one of the examples I always like to say, that people are very willing to teach you this craft because few of this young generation are interested, and it's very important. All you have to do is just go out there and ask, and I can only believe in the US it's much easier to do so. But anywhere around the world, anyone's gonna take you in as long as they see the passion. And with this company, I learned crazy amount of restoration, and when we work on Mille cars, I've been with them to the Mille for 2 years. We restore car. We are fixing cars on the road. Crazy cars. You know how it is. A lot of events around the world. Quite the experience, and passion is the key to all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many little shops around Europe, and they're kind of secret, but they're doing amazing work. It's true in the US as well, although I would say in the US for some of these cars, those shops are so busy. They're restoring cars for Pebble Beach and so forth. They're a little bit more high profile, but in Europe, some of them are so secret, and they're in very unlikely places. I remember just by pure chance finding a little shop like that in Modena last year. We had just left the Enzo Ferrari Museum, and we were walking down the street looking for a place to stop and have lunch. And there was an alley going back between buildings, and it had a gravel car park. And in that gravel car park, I noticed a Fiat 850 coupe. And I thought, that's, you don't see cars that old in Italy just sitting around. Yeah. So I stopped my wife and I go, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go take a peek at this car. And it turned out that car was parked next to a little restoration shop. And I peeked inside and there were Ferraris and Maseratis under restoration in there. And there was two really dirty, grimy guys just working away. And they saw us, and I explained in broken Italian, hey, I just love old cars and I noticed the Fiat. And anyway, they gave us a tour, and we spent about half an hour there, and it was wonderful.
Those are the actual real mechanics of the business, the ones who are lying under profile and doing their thing.
Definitely. What is it about Cadillacs? Do you feel like that's like 59 is like the pinnacle? Is that what it is?
59 is the year for all American cars, in my opinion. That's the designs and technology was literally there. And for me, it's just fascinating as a kid seeing all these huge missiles in the back, or those huge bumpers and the jet age. It's wonderful for me.
Yeah, I love that jet age stuff. And GM was really at the top of their game right then.
Definitely. They're
59 Cadillac, Pontiac. Yeah,
but
amazing
starting
cars.
The 60s, I just lose the interest, for me at least. 59 was the last year. I'm a big 50s guy. Anything between 54 and 59, I will take with my eyes closed.
Yeah. Chrysler, by the way. Chrysler was doing amazing stuff right then. Like,
Definitely.
Their early 60s cars got really weird, but in a good way.
Yeah, true.
Like a 1960 Dodge Polara. Talk about a spaceship, right? Just wild.
They were still keeping up their 59 dictionary, kind of. They were still on with that trace, but everyone else started going more subtle after that in the 60s, 61, 62, 63, I think this period.
Well, what happened was, Virgil Exner was the god at Chrysler starting in about 1955. And his influence was so strong, and his idea of styling was so avant-garde. But at GM, the crazy, wild, flamboyant stuff mostly ended in 1960 because Harley Earl had retired in 1958. He had mandatory retirement at 65 years of age. And then Bill Mitchell came in at GM, and he's the guy who shifted their entire styling to that rectilinear look, and he got rid of all the chrome and got rid of fins for the most part. Cadillac, persisted with fins, and Chevy persisted with fins for a little bit, but that's why you see the much more understated look at GM after 1960.
Yeah, definitely. They do have their beauty, but if it was for me, for my own collection, I would just stick to the 50s.
No, I totally get it. It's you like what you like,
It is.
and yeah, I understand that completely. Ahmad, let's talk about Instagram, because you mentioned earlier one of the goals when you started your Instagram page was to expose the world to the Lebanese car culture. And I know it's a lot of work, but tell me about how that all began and what your goals are and all of that.
So I was very fascinated about reviewing cars. One of the main things for me starting the page was for me to learn. You learn by teaching, and learning about these cars to present them to others put a lot of pressure on me to actually dive deeper into what I just presented in 1 minute. I'm just presenting some bullet points in 1 minute, but behind that I have a big vocabulary and a big dictionary of words and of knowledge. But I also liked to go to all these car events and to portray them. First, it started as I'm showing these events to other Lebanese people who are not in this group, for example. And when I started seeing interested people joining just because of the videos and wanting to be more integrated in the car culture, I started understanding that there's much bigger potential for this page. So I started doing videos in English for the outside world to see how we Lebanese people live, how we travel, how we do our restorations. And it took off very well. But it took off even better when I started traveling outside, and I became all over the place filming these cars, and it was more that people want to watch, to see cars they've never seen before. And here there's something that I always highlight. I want the new generation who are very far off, who are just watching on their videos for 1 minute, to be much more interested in this culture. Because think about it, in 50, 60 years, besides the US, because I know their community is huge, around the world, it's a declining phenomenon. And if someone that isn't young taking the initiative to do this work for the other generation, sadly, in 50 years, all of these cars are just going to be stuck in garages and no one's going to drive them. And that breaks my heart, honestly, as a pure passionate person. This is the second biggest goal on this page. I want people to drive their cars. I want them to restore them. I want them to keep on doing events, to be part of this beautiful scene.
That's wonderful. In the US, there's a lot of talk about, is car culture dying? Is the young generation not interested? And I think we can safely say that young people are interested. They're just interested in different cars. But you're right. You don't want those classics to just sit in garages. And I think we don't need to worry, because as young people get older, they will get interested in different cars. And inevitably, I think they'll get interested in older cars. I know that's true of myself, because I have gotten interested in older and older cars as I have gotten older. Maybe it's natural, I don't know. But by the way, I have a 31 Model A Roadster.
I should have mentioned that on my top 3 cars that I need is a Model A. That's one of my dreams, yeah.
Yeah, I know you've had some Model A's on your YouTube and on your Instagram. Are those just cars that belong to guys in the community?
Yes, and very young guys, actually. Some of my friends who are like 22, 23 years old were fascinated by pre-wars. But it comes genetically almost because their grandpa had memories of them. So they just go seeking this vibe of pre-war cars.
I think it's awesome that there are Model A's running and driving in Lebanon. I mean, of all places, you wouldn't expect that. But you said in one of your videos, it was the first real car, and that's so true. I mean, it had a standard layout of all the controls. It was easy to drive, great daily drivers. They start up first time most every time.
I've had my good share of driving Ford Model A's in Romania and here as well, and it always drives me crazy how good it is for a car that's 100 years old. It's actually just a drive that the car you can get in and drive, and it's a mesmerizing experience every single time.
Yeah, I jump in mine constantly just to do errands and stuff. In a way, it's my daily driver when I don't need a modern car.
Utterly jealous.
Well, you talk about importing cars and you say you might as well just bring them in from the US or Canada. If you want a Model A, I mean, they're pretty cheap still.
They are for sure.
You can buy a really nice one. I'll help you find one.
I'm not going to let out a secret, but there's one here in Lebanon that I have my eye on, and I'm waiting for the guy to let go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. What is it, a two-door or
no, it's a four. It's a normal sedan. It's a normal sedan.
Okay.
But any Model A will do, honestly.
I love the sedans. One of the things I see on your Instagram, Ahmad, is there's a surprising amount of big American 50s cars, and I know that's kind of your soft spot. Where did these cars come from? Have they been in Lebanon since they were new? Do people bring them in?
70% of the cars in Lebanon are actually cars that are still here, that are survivors of war, and they were used a lot. A lot of people left Lebanon, and a lot of them came back with their cars. But more than that, a lot of car companies were open here. I always stumble upon posters of companies that were open here in the 50s. I can't remember exactly which ones, but it's always fascinating because cars were sold new here and were kept a lot by the same owners. And now some people are actually going out with them after so many years. We even have a few Cadillac Biarritz. That's crazy. You've heard of the Plymouth XNR that was here in the Civil War that was hidden here. I don't know.
Yes.
So it's a lot of crazy cars that you see here. As not just Americans, we had like Gullwings were here. A few of them. We had a few Muras. We had anything that comes across your mind. I know of a Countach here that's parked in someone's living room. So there's a lot of hidden gems. People are a little low profile about them, but they are here, and I think it's always interesting to find them all over. And with this page, it opens up a lot of opportunities to see things like that and to share them with the world.
Yes. And in case people don't know, at one time in the 50s and 60s, Beirut was known as sort of the French Riviera of the region.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of money in Beirut. Lebanon was prosperous. It was a peaceful time. So it follows that there would be some pretty amazing cars there.
Here's a very common misconception. We always use the past tense when we say these things, but as much as it is true, Lebanon, and specifically Beirut, is still called Little Paris, and it's still flourishing with life. There's crazy amount of happy people there. Everyone's living in coordination between religions. And yes, a lot of bad things happen all around the world. And if you come here tomorrow, you're going to see crazy cars, crazy people enjoying their life. It's very prosperous. A lot of people live outside, a lot of businessmen here. And yes, indeed, some suburbs are struggling and a lot of bad things have been happening lately, but we have resilience. We have a lot of love for life, and we continue to do so no matter what the circumstances are.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. That's wonderful. And definitely the image of Lebanon in the West needs to change. And you're one of the guys that's doing that. It's fantastic.
I'm very happy to hear you say that. I try my best because there's a lot here to see, and I believe that's only going to get better from here.
Well, I'll tell you what, after talking to you, I want to come visit. I think that would be fantastic.
Most welcome here, and you're going to be driving a 56 Thunderbird on beautiful roads near the beach. That's a promise.
Let's do it. Dr. Ahmad Fahs. Follow him on Instagram at Classics with Fasoon. Fasoon is, of course, your nickname.
Yes.
And you have a very modest YouTube channel, but I know you're working on expanding that and doing more there. But you're a busy dentist, so you only have so much time. You also have to drive your cars and fix your cars besides shooting a lot of videos. So
yes, a lot of things to do. And YouTube was the beginning of this Instagram madness, and now I'm shifting back to cutting my time for both YouTube and Instagram. It's going to be growing soon on.
I know how it goes, my friend. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too.
It's definitely worth it because we meet people like yourself and other enthusiasts.
That's the power of social media, right? When you're using it in the right way, you make so many wonderful friends.
Definitely.
All right, Ahmad, thanks for coming on the show. This was really fun, and I think people are really going to enjoy this one.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this part of the world's fashion, and hopefully you get to see more on my page and on yours.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ahmad.
Pleasure.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. If you like what you've heard, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more good stuff. Support the show with a donation at buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage. And until next time, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.